Welcome to the Smash Jump Podcast, your place for honest and passionate gaming conversations. Recently, Mind's Eye, a brand new video game that's come out, has had a bit of a rocky launch, I think it's fair to say. And that got us to thinking, what are some of the worst video game launches that have ever happened? And what about some of the worst console launches? The Switch 2 just recently launched, and we're wondering how it stacks up against the other console launches from the past. We have two people here who have played both the Switch 2 in Jeremy and Mind's Eye with Ben, so we're going to get their thoughts on that, and then we're going to just talk about all things console and video game launches. So we're going to discuss all that and so much more, but first, if you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe to the Smash Jump YouTube channel. Comment below your prediction. Oh, wait, no predictions. I used the old intro from last episode. Copy and paste it. Don't do that, guys. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out Smash Jump's Patreon, by the way. We do a post show at the end of every podcast episode. You can subscribe to Patreon to check those out. The topic always just changes. It's kind of whatever we feel like. So if you just like hearing us talk, go check that out. And with that, let's go ahead and introduce our guests for this episode.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian, the managing editor.
I'm alive now. I'm Jeremy. I'm a contributor.
And I'm Ben, also a contributor.
Sorry, guys. Jeremy does not get turned on or off until Nintendo says so.
Yeah, no.
So...
yeah. Nintendo built me back in 2004. It didn't go well for them.
he just recently wrote a review for Mario Kart World, which you guys should go check out on Smash Jump's website, where we do all sorts of reviews, gaming news, and stuff like that. And he wasn't especially, I mean, it was fine. He was kind to it. You know, we'll get his thoughts on it in a little bit, but like it wasn't a glowing 10 out of 10, we'll say.
Review.
And Nintendo is not too happy with him right now. He's not too happy. They have agents at his door as we speak.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, if he disappears in the middle of this podcast, I never knew him. I never knew who he was.
The door is barricaded right now. We're good.
Oh, they'll find a way. They'll find.
I know.
They'll find a way.
A guy in just a big Mario
Switch
suit
2
just gonna
remotely
bust in.
bricked overnight.
Yeah, you'll never be able to play Switch 2 again.
That's
So, but we're gonna get to the Switch 2 in just a minute. But first, Ben, you've been playing a little game called Mind's Eye that's had a little bit of a, I think it's fair to say, like a weird launch, a weird like build up to its launch. So give me a little bit of background on Mind's Eye, and you've played it, you reviewed it. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So I think Mind's Eye is pretty unavoidable at the moment. Kind of the run up to its launch, it's getting a lot of criticism from its trailers, from its gameplay, kind of giving off a vibe of something that's AI generated or one of those kind of scammy trailers for a mobile phone game that doesn't exist. And then you've got the developers who've been making comments thinking that people saying negative things about the trailers are paid actors. So it's not had the greatest run up to its launch. And then it launches and it's widely documented to be a pretty buggy mess with quite poor performance. So a lot of people aren't very happy about Mind's Eye at the moment. And it's certainly been a huge dent to Leslie Benzie's reputation, as well as that to Builder Rocket Boy and IO Interactive.
And so, to give a little bit of like, why should we care about Mind's Eye for people who haven't, who aren't familiar with the situation? It is IO, right? The same people as Hitman and the new upcoming 007, but it also was being worked on by some former GTA developers. Is that true?
Yeah, so IO are the publisher for it. They've not really had much direct involvement in the actual creation of the game. And Builder Rocket Boy is the developer for it, who were founded by Leslie Benzie, who is an ex-Rockstar developer. I believe widely credited as the game director for GTA 5. So it's gone into it with a lot of expectations of pedigree. People have seen this connection to Rockstar, have seen this connection to GTA 5, and it's given an expectation of quality for people because, you know, you've got that experience with a developer that's known for quality and a franchise that is considered top-notch quality. So it's been disappointing then that some of the way the game is playing on release is not meeting that mark at all. Digital Foundry did a video actually quite recently, benchmarking performance on it, and for a game that's locked to 30 FPS on consoles and PC actually, struggling to hit even 20 FPS. So it's really not.
That's rough.
Yeah, it's really not putting Build a Rocket Boy or Leslie Benzie in the greatest of frame. And, you know, for IO Interactive, it does raise questions about, you know, them as publishers, what quality they're willing to put out, you know, as they make that leap from developer to publisher.
Man,
So,
I just did do a quick look into sort of how other outlets are checking this game out, what they're thinking about it. I'm seeing Metacritic's got an average of a 38, which is pretty low.
yeah,
IGN gave it a 4 out of 10, so
Yeah.
right, even just below average, right? Like 4 out of 10 is rough, right? So
yeah,
I'm curious, you've played it.
yeah.
Did you finish it? And then second, what were your thoughts on it? Like, do you think all of this, sort of, do you think those reviews are fair? Do you think the hate that's come onto it is fair? What do you think about all of that?
So yeah, I think it's very mixed. So we ended up giving it a slightly more favorable review. I ended up giving it a 6 out of 10. Um, Mostly for me, I played on the base PlayStation 5. I tend to get quite lucky with bugs for releases when they're supposed to be quite buggy. So I didn't really get many bugs at all until later into the game, and the ones that I did were not particularly noticeable, not game breaking in any way, shape, or form. Um, I did get the issues with frame rate, predominantly in shooting and gate and driving sections, but again, they weren't particularly noticeable for me. They never actually interrupted my gameplay experience in any way that had a negative impact on the game for me. So for me, it ended up being a case of something that has a lot of potential, has a story that has a lot of potential, characters that I'd be happy to see again. Um, Good potential in the writing, but kind of everything just feels just like it's not quite finished yet. The driving and gunplay has a very solid base, and you can really kind of feel that Rockstar GTA 5 pedigree in there. Um, that's the closest comparison I think I would have to how the gunplay and the driving feels. Um, but throughout the whole game, story included, everything just feels like they're just not quite hitting the mark with it. Everything feels just underbaked. And then I did play it to the end, and it is a rather disappointing ending that I think is very clearly designed to set up their plans for future content, which I don't see happening, to be fair.
Ugh. Rough,
Mm.
rough. You never want to plan future content. You don't even know if you're gonna get any in the first place.
Exactly. I
Ugh,
think a lot of the
ugh.
expectations people have had for it coming off of the GTA comparison is that you're going to have that GTA-esque open world experience whilst you're playing, which you don't have because it's a very tailored story with the open world just being a means of getting from A to B. The free roam mode that you do have that you unlock as a separate mode halfway through, again, just feels tacked on and not finished. Um, and all of their upcoming content will be in that free play mode. So for it to launch with basically nothing to do in it, everything you can do in there, you can do just through a menu option in the main story. Yeah, it's easy to see why people would rate it so low, particularly if you are having those performance and bug issues. And once I'd finished my review, I actually went and watched a few streams. Most predominantly, I was watching Angry Joe do his stream of it. And, watching people play it on PC and watching the clear difference in performance and bugs that they were having, I can 100% see why people are very easily able to justify, scores of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Dang. Dang. And I I remember seeing somewhere on Reddit the cover art or whatever, like the promo art for Mind's Eye looks a lot like Tenet split poster from Christopher
It's
Nolan.
that very, yeah, it reminds me a lot of Battlefield 3, I think it was, where it
Mm,
first did like the orange and blue.
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
much that like mid 2000s just templated
Oh,
cover art. It's very, but I mean, if you get performance running well, it looks fantastic.
Ben, so on the base PS5, it doesn't have a
Hmm.
performance mode, a 60 FPS
There's
mode?
no,
Wow.
there's no
hmm.
quality, no performance modes. It is
Locked.
just locked in 30 FPS.
Wow.
Um, for the most part, it will hit 30 FPS, but as soon as you get into any kind of intense movement or action through gunplay or driving, it will be hitting like 18, 19
Mhm.
FPS. And on PlayStation 5 Pro, because it has those Pro enhancements and it has that greater resolution, it tanks the performance even more.
Oh,
Tanks it
wow.
even. Wow.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
because
You love
No.
to hear that.
because it's exactly, it's a GPU issue, so it's handling all this extra resolution, but it doesn't unlock any extra power because it's all, through one core. So it struggles
And
even more.
and yet this is not an open world game in the traditional sense, and yet we still have
No.
these bad issues. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, the
No.
comparisons I'm seeing are that it's closer to Mafia in the way it handles its open world.
Mm.
There was a patch on day 3 that removed the depth of field blur that is standard throughout the game. And that actually works to really increase the graphical quality and performance. I'm not sure how and why it was tanking performance, but in terms of visual quality, you about 50 to 100 yards away from you, everything just turns blurry, and you can tell it's an attempt to compensate for the poor performance, but all it ends up doing is making the game look worse and making the performance even more stussier because it's trying to render blur on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth it? Like, do you think the like sometimes you'll play a game and it will have something like that where it's like locked to a certain frame rate or the performance isn't
Hmm.
perfectly butter smooth, but the visuals make up for it enough to
Yeah,
justify it. Do you think that it's justified to have 30 FPS being locked?
I think maybe. I mean, it is excellent, excellent visuals in there. When you get the blur off, it is crisp. Some of the most photorealistic environments I think I've seen in a game for a long, long time. The motion capture and facial performances on characters is superb. You can really see the effort there, and you can see the quality. Um, the 30 FPS thing depends how bothered you are about frame rate. Um, for me, I I'm one of those people that doesn't really notice it too much. Obviously, I'd prefer a higher frame rate, but I can't see the difference, so I don't care if it's locked at 30 as long as it performs well, and it feels smooth. That's what matters to me. So obviously, the drops in frame rate, sorry, aren't great, but as long as it's not impacting performance and it's not like Cyberpunk where the drops in frame rate give me motion sickness, then it's fine. I think if it's worth it, maybe not at £55 or $60. Um, but
Yeah.
with a bit of a discount, you know, 25, 30, if you don't mind a sci-fi story near future with a lot of potential that maybe doesn't quite hit the mark, yeah, it's worth a playthrough.
How long is the story? How many hours?
Well, the developers said about 20, but in reality, it's like 10 to 12.
Oh wow. Okay,
So,
interesting. I wonder if they expected you to spend more time in sort of the bigger world than like people probably want to.
Yeah, I think they probably that 20-hour mark's probably including doing some of the side content, which isn't as fun as any of the main content, because you don't play as your main character through the side content.
What?
You lose access. Yeah, so the side content it's
You
presented
can't just throw that
as
in there. You
like
gotta
yeah.
expand on that. What are you talking about?
So the side content is presented either as you play it as the free roam character, which is a different character to the main character in the story. No context of who this character is, why you're playing as them. They seem like a potentially cut side character from the main story. So when you're doing free roam, you do all the side content as that character. When you do the side content in the main story through the portals that are presented in the world or through accessing it through the main menu, you kind of take on a memory of someone and just an NPC, like, general citizen of Red Rock, the city that the game's set in.
Could you say that you enter their mind's eye?
Yeah, you do.
Is that like
But
actually
because
what the like? Do they set that up as like a story beat, or is it just kind of feel random that you're just not your main character?
it is set up as a story beat when you do it through the main story. So it's got the conceit that you've got this implant, this mind's eye implant, kind of in your head, and it's been affected by some weird, possibly alien, ancient kind of tech. So it's presented through the story that it's part of the malfunction with your device that is triggering these memories and allowing you to access kind of shared memories. But because you're going into these random citizens' minds, you lose access to all the kind of fun tools that you get throughout the game. So you lose all of your drone abilities, which are one of the major kind of fun points of the combat. It means you don't get to mark targets on the world. So if you don't know where someone's shooting at you from, you don't see them, that's it. You can't mark them at all. You don't get access to like grenades or stuns or anything like that through it. And the characters aren't as interesting because you've got no connection to them. So you're just doing these boring shooting tasks with no extra fun added on it. You've got the limited weapons that you have in that mission, nothing that you've unlocked throughout the game. So it's like you're having a lesser experience. So I think I did 2 or 3 just to see what they were and then just ignored the rest of them.
You know what that reminds me of? Watch Dogs Legion, how you could like take control of a bunch of different kinds of characters, but
Mm,
they're all just kind of like random. There's no like anchor to bring it all together.
yeah.
That reminds me of a little bit of that. And also, I'm gonna be honest, this doesn't sound like my kind of game. I'm hearing
I think
Elon
it's
Musk
yeah.
brain chips. I'm hearing like I'm hearing
Aliens.
The story, yeah,
ancient
I mean the
aliens.
story
Like I'm not
has
sure.
yeah, the story has a lot of potential if you're into that kind of like sci-fi thing. I was quite interested. There's a lot of teasing about kind of like AI uprising and the robots have a lot of parallels to iRobot. Um, so that for me was quite interesting, but it just never goes anywhere with it. It's always just background stuff that it just teases all the way through and then just kind of drops for these less interesting bits of plot. So if you're into those kind of concepts and you want a little bit of that, near future experience, then yeah. But if it's not your kind of thing, it's not your kind of thing. And I don't think it's not the mind-bending story they wanted to craft that would change your mind.
That will open your mind's eye. You're gonna have to wait
Mm,
for Mind's Eye 2. That will totally happen to get resolutions to all of those, I'm sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
mean, there's rumors now that they're working on the boys game.
Oh,
So
yeah.
okay,
Big
that'll
IP.
be great.
yeah.
Totally.
Still gonna be
So
better than season 4.
well, let's just
Love to
hope they
see
learn the
that.
lesson from Mind's Eye. Don't oversell it. Limit to what you're actually capable of achieving, and
And then
don't
it felt like
overhype.
from what I remember about how Mind's Eye was being led up to, it was like we heard nothing about it for a long time, and then all of a sudden it just dropped. And it was like
Yeah,
Yeah.
like where was it felt like they were hiding it.
yeah, and the trailers they did have for it I was saying in our Discord up and the lead up to it, it had the worst marketing campaign possible. It had a gameplay trailer that just showed you the most boring gameplay. All of the other trailers it had for it, showcasing it off like the state of play, all just made it look like it was either a scam or, you know, a mobile game that was half finished. And then the very, very final launch trailer actually made it look like a good game, made it look fun. And if they'd had that marketing all the way through, I think probably would have sold a bit better. And if it had just nailed the performance, it would have been remembered as a mid first entry from a developer that would have a lot of potential for future games. But as it is, it's going to get remembered for a poor launch and potentially, if may Build a Rocket Boy don't do anything further, as a scam game.
Dang. And we're going to be talking about couple, potentially maybe what people consider scam games in just a second. But you did mention a game in there when we were talking about bugs and graphics and all that kind of stuff that, like MindsEye, had had kind of a rocky launch. But unlike MindsEye, seems to have, recovered from that and has already been confirmed to be in the works for a sequel. And that is Cyberpunk 2077, which will begin our discussion of some of the worst game launches that we've ever seen. Obviously, like Cyberpunk was the most hyped game for that year. I remember I was super hyped for it as a huge Witcher fan. Witcher 3, amazing. I'm even a Witcher 2 lover. Like I love Witcher 2 and 3. And so I was like, oh, like everybody else, I was like, Cyberpunk is going to be like the next coming of Jesus. You know what I mean? Like it's just going to be the best thing ever. And then it came out and it was a problem. And it was honestly, I think the thing I remember most about Cyberpunk 2077's launch was the unprecedented fact of it getting ripped from the PlayStation Store. Like up to that point, I'm sure games had been ripped from the PlayStation Store, but nothing of that high caliber and with that much weight and cachet to it. I remember when it came out, I had bought it on Epic Game Store, I believe, and I knew a friend who had played it on PlayStation 4, and they were having so many issues. Like I had experienced on PC some things, some problems, but nothing like catastrophic. And that's at the time what I remember hearing was that PC was the most stable of the launches. And so it kind of reminds me of Ben's experience with MindsEye, where he kind of didn't encounter as many bugs and horrible things that other reviewers have for MindsEye. Same thing with Cyberpunk, where like depending on who you were and how lucky you got and what your PC build was, if you played on console, what have you, you could have a completely different like experience in terms of the bugs and glitches. Like I had experience that was more similar to like a Skyrim or a Fallout 4 at launch, where you just have these weird things that happen. Sometimes you have to reload an old save, sometimes you don't, like that kind of thing. But it's just sort of par for the course for big open world games. And then other people were having their entire games just completely explode, basically. And so it really, I just, and CD Projekt Red's reputation still has not quite recovered from that. Like they're definitely on the road there because they have fixed up Cyberpunk since then. It's one of those of the, think on our list here that we have written down for some games to talk about. It's one of the top three in terms of like the games that have recovered from their disasters. But it was a rough time, and it kind of makes me think when we're talking about Witcher 4, when we're talking about Cyberpunk 2088, whatever they call the next one, 2077 2. We have to keep in mind what happened with Cyberpunk because it was just so disastrous that it could always happen again. You really never know. But did anybody else here play Cyberpunk when it came out or follow sort of the disaster of its launch?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't played it, but I followed it closely. It was really difficult to get away from it because here in the UK, it was basically staple on all the buses. Like Cyberpunk is coming
Hmm.
out. I was actually excited in the sense that not necessarily that I'm a big fan of the Witcher series because I'm not, but up to that point, I felt like CD Projekt Red, to me, they basically proved themselves as being, great at what they do, trustworthy as well. But what got me excited about Cyberpunk is that I'm a big fan of Deus Ex. So the first Deus Ex Human Revolution. So I was like, I want more Cyberpunk, style games, and this looks amazing. And I mean, I didn't expect that it would run exactly as they showed it, or that it would be exactly like that, but I hope that it will come close. I was getting ready to buy it on PS4 because at the time I had the PS4, and I just saw like what you guys were saying, like the outpouring of fans being sad, upset, betrayed. And I saw a lot of those memes again, like video clips and stuff like that on PS4, basically crashing within the first few seconds. Really put me off. To this day, I haven't touched it. I know I don't know, to some extent, I heard that they largely changed that story around. But the fact is, they tried to come out with an unfinished game and tell us that they even said that, oh no, it works well on base PS4 or Xbox console. So I remember that. They said that. So yeah, I think my trust in them is still to some extent broken, even though they came around. To be honest, I will probably at one point play Cyberpunk. But yeah, I think the initial excitement stuff is gone for me.
Well, Ben, Jeremy, did y'all get involved with the Cyberpunk drama at all?
No.
I watched
Oh, you could now.
I
It's on Switch too.
yeah,
You could do it.
and it's supposedly one of the better games on Switch too as well,
Oh yeah.
performance wise at least.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, I watched. I also followed Cyberpunk 77 quite closely at the time. Didn't get it until that Christmas when my wife bought it for me. Um, and yeah, it was a similar thing, you know. I was never that into the Witcher series. I played The Witcher 3, but I just never, to this day, I've never quite got into The Witcher 3. Um, but I love that kind of cyberpunk aesthetic. It's one of my favorite genres of sci-fi. So I was digging it. I was really in, and obviously the trailers and gameplay that they had shown off beforehand, it looked like one of the most kind of detailed and innovative RPGs that we'd had in a long, long time, and it looked like it was really going to push the boundaries. And obviously, yeah, it comes out and it's excuse my French, a shit show, you know. So it damages a lot of your trust in them as developers. So now I'm looking at Witcher 4 and I'm like, it looks great, but I am keeping my distance from that game. You know, Cyberpunk was one of the many, many launchers now that has just been a constant reminder that we should all be paying attention to the dearly departed Total Biscuit and never pre-order anything because this is what happens. You know, you pre-order, they've got your money. If it's on a console like the PlayStation, you can't get a refund for it. So where's the incentive for them to actually put the effort into giving you that finished product because they've got the money, you know. We're very, very lucky that CD Projekt Red and the developers for No Man's Sky, who I can't remember off the top of my head, the name is also on our list, have actually put that effort into making the games good and bringing them back to the quality that people expect them to be, because not very many devs do that.
Yeah.
Not many devs have the time or the money to do that.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Total Biscuit. Love that guy. I remember when that happened, but that's a whole nother thing. Honestly, like in the digital age nowadays, like what's the point? Like, it's not like you're gonna run out of copies. You know, it's not like, back when you had to buy all physical, like there was a chance that you could, get to the store and they don't have anymore, especially if it's a very popular game that they don't get a lot of shipment in. But like in the digital age, they're not gonna run out. So like the only incentive is to get these weird little bonuses, like in Oblivion, you would get if you got the like deluxe edition or whatever, you would get some extra horse armor that does nothing, and it's like, okay, whatever. Like, why do I
Yeah.
care about this? So it's like,
And
yeah,
most of the
don't
time,
pre-order.
yeah, I mean, most of the time, I always find a lot of the time, if I'm going to buy physical, I'll get it on the day of release. And more often than not, when I go and collect a copy from wherever I collect it, mostly Argos, and if any UK people, it's mostly Argos that I get my games from because it's close and I'm lazy. But I find more often than not that I buy it day one of release and I get all the pre-order stuff in the case still because they don't care. They're just like, oh yeah, here, it's a copy of the
Yeah.
game. What's it matter? So, those pre-order things aren't an incentive for me anymore because most likely I'm gonna get the pre-order stuff
Yeah,
regardless.
I feel like that's a age that's kind of past that I'm glad of like getting these crazy massive pre-order bonuses that remember especially in some of the old Call of Duty launches, there would be some crazy pre-order bonuses you would get. They give you like
Mm,
more XP or yada yada, and they would put you a bit of like a leg ahead than the people who didn't.
yeah,
But like in the digital age, you're not going to run out, and then also if you do still want physical copies of games, nobody else is buying them, so you can just go get them. Like
yeah,
this, they're again still not going to run out because nobody else is doing it. But on that note, Hello Games developers for No Man's Sky, similar
that's it.
story
Hello
as
Games.
Cyberpunk, uh, come out disaster launch, builds it back up and makes it actually great. And the other success story for that would be Fallout 76 to a little bit of a lesser degree, but still has come back and made something of itself. Fallout 76 was just like it to me. I didn't play Fallout 76, but I did follow it very closely because I was always intrigued. I love Bethesda games and I love Fallout, and I was intrigued about playing having a Bethesda game that would play like a Bethesda game but lets you play with other people, right? Because that's all, like, you can
Yeah,
go find mods for like Skyrim and Fallout and stuff like that now, which are co-op, so you can play co-op with people in Skyrim and things like that. And I've used those before, but having it innate and not having the stressors and awkwardness of putting a mod together, teaching your friend how to use a mod, making sure it works, having that connection, not having a dedicated server for it, just being able to do it naturally from Bethesda. Like, I was watching that at like a hawk because I was very interested in something like that. And then it came out and it was not it was not it, Chief.
typical
First of
Bethesda
all,
jank.
typical Bethesda jank, and then they went a step further from that and made it to where they took out the soul of what Bethesda was by having no NPCs anywhere. Like, they had to add it in later, so all your missions were like just from these like little kiosks and stuff. And I get the conceit because they wanted your world to be like, they wanted the players within the world to be your NPCs, and that's cool in theory, but in reality, it just doesn't work because you end up building bases and people are assholes online. So they blow up your base, and then you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
well, I guess that was a fun NPC or interaction. Like, and then
And
you
if they
miss out
wanted to
on
do that,
stories.
it should have been a separate RP mode. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
an RP
Yeah.
mode, you take out the NPCs, and everyone in there agrees that we're going to make a story. But to force it on general players was just a
Yeah.
ridiculous
It
decision.
felt a little bit like they were trying to do some like Escape from Tarkov type stuff, or what's that, the zombie survival game like H1Z1, DayZ, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, where like like part of the game is how you interact with other players in a survival situation, and you don't know if they're going to betray you or not, whatever. But in a Fallout game where it's not that gritty, like Fallout is not that kind of game, it's more of a sandboxy kind of game, it didn't work. And then the most egregious thing to me, why I never picked it up at launch, was because of the microtransactions that they started putting in there. You would get the atom points, their extra currency, and you could go buy things. And it seemed like it was cosmetic only at first, which is fine, whatever. But then they started introducing other things to help you gameplay wise. Like, they had repair kits, which you could buy, which would instantly repair any of your gear without eating up any of the materials you've grinded for before. So that automatically, like, if you're just putting in the money to get atom points, there you go. You just get to keep all your materials. They had scrap kits, which whenever they went on sale, gave players the option to scrap and stash all of the junk instead of having to take it all the way to a vendor and sell it or do it that way, which just saved you a ton of time, which if you're not willing to pay that amount of money, well, you're going to pay with your time, which, in my opinion, is more valuable because you can get your money back. You can't get your time back. And that's just kind of disrespectful. And so they started doing those things. And I was like, oh, this is when you start introducing that, paying to progress yourself further in a multiplayer game, that really just rubs me the wrong way. It seems like most of that stuff has gotten taken out. Thankfully, a lot of the bugs have been fixed, and obviously they have added the NPCs, they've increased the story and all that kind of good stuff, which is great. But it's Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, and Fallout 76 all have the same theme with me of games that I was super interested in, but even after they fixed their launch, the sourness from the launch date still lingers. And so I still have not finished or played some of those games. Like I've played Cyberpunk, but I still haven't finished it because there's like this lingering stink on it that you can't just get rid of, right? You can't ignore it, especially if you were there following it at the time. Uh, so it's definitely, I appreciate when games can recover from failures like that and become successes, but I don't know, for me, it makes it even more difficult for me to then get into it later because it just never quite feels right. How do you guys feel about that? Like, have you
Yeah.
guys ever
That-
jumped into a game that's fixed itself later or anything like that?
Yeah, that was my experience with No Man's Sky. Out of the three of those games, that was the one that I was really hyped for. And then obviously the release was so bad. It was just heartbreaking to see it. Just this game that you've been so hyped for just come out and just be awful, buggy, unfinished, grindy mess. It had a pre-order bonus, and if you pre-ordered the No Man's Sky, the pre-order bonus would soft lock your game because the pre-order bonus gave you a hyperdrive ship, and you could not complete the tutorial without fixing the hyperdrive on the ship you get in the tutorial. So if you had your pre-order ship with working hyperdrive, you could not finish the tutorial and you were locked to a single planet.
Wow.
Wow.
Great, yeah.
Great.
But the thing with No Man's
You're
Sky is
so
that is
you're
a
punished
game.
for doing the
Yeah,
pre-order. Total Biscuit would have
yeah,
lost his shit.
yeah, yeah. It was hilarious. But the thing with No Man's Sky is that I have gone back and played that now. It's one of the games that was a monthly title on PlayStation Plus. So I think I actually paid for it like the month before it came out, which is just
Damn.
typical. Um, but
Thank you for the sacrifice.
you're all welcome. But it was absolutely worth it. Um, the thing that kind of switched me back onto it was, I don't know if anyone's seen Internet Historian's video, The Engoodening of No Man's Sky. It's an hour-long video just detailing the build up of No Man's Sky from its initial conception all the way through to release, all the shit that happened after release, and then back through to where it is now. And it's this fascinating tale of a game that had a frontman for it that was just not experienced in being a frontman for a game and giving interviews, is a developer at heart, pushed into the PR limelight for a game, who just could not say no to people. So anytime any question was asked of him, yeah, you can do this in the game, you can do that in the game. Oh, yeah, I guess. And those kind of non-answers just fueled and fueled and fueled and fueled and fueled the hype train until it was next to impossible for it to ever live up to that hype. Um, Obviously, it came out, had this disastrous release. Um, and then that same dev, who was the lead on that game, took it upon himself to just absorb all of the hate and all of the negative feedback that was coming through the game, figure out what is the actual useful feedback here, what are people just hating, what is useless, funneled all of that into a project for his team of, okay, here's how we're going to fix it and get the game good again. Um, and now the game is in a position where everything that was ever promised in the run up to its release has been added to the game, plus dozens more content patches worth of stuff, all for free. I think it's on like its eighth or ninth expansion pack now. You've got base building, you've got fleets, you've got multiplayer stuff, you've got underwater bases. They've redone the world generation multiple times now, and it's actually a really, really, really good time now. It takes that experience and it genuinely they've put such time and effort into making it better than they promised. So it really is one of the success stories. I would definitely recommend it to anyone out there that's thinking about playing No Man's Sky.
And they have a new game they announced, right? Light No Fire. A couple
They
years
do.
ago, they announced that, and they claimed it was like a survival game that's supposed to be centralized to one planet, but it's the literal size of Earth. So I'm really hoping
Yeah.
that that's not him over promising again. But I figure they
Yeah.
probably need to have learned their lesson at this point, you know?
Yeah, and I mean the planetary generation for No Man's Sky shows that they probably are capable of doing that. You know, because there's like 200 galaxies in No Man's Sky, each of them has a potentially several billion planets in it or something ridiculous like that. Because it's all procedurally generated, they have the capability to do that scale. So, yeah, I'm very excited for Light No Fire. I think that's if that if they learn their lessons and they have a solid performance at launch, that's potentially going to be a classic.
Gonna have
I
to
hope we're
wait and
not going
see
to
on
get a
that one.
Starfield or something, because they promised a lot with Starfield, and we got, and I think that brings a
Yeah,
great point with Ben Ashton. Like, how do you present your game? Because
yeah,
if you exaggerate, of course, people are going to be like, well, yeah, we missed this and that, and
yeah. And I think that's the common thread between Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, Concord, all of these games is that they all promised excellence and they all everything they shared and they told us about those games just pushed and pushed and pushed it to the next level that was ultimately unobtainable, and I think if any of these games they hadn't promised so much, they probably wouldn't have been the mess as they were at launch.
I think that.
Fallout 76 is the exact same. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Adrian.
No, I was saying like that's good because Concord was not by itself a, badly optimized, or the game didn't have those many issues of running well and so on. It was just not decently presented. It was really
Hmm.
plain. It didn't stand out. So it had a lot to suffer because when I'm afraid
Yeah,
that Marathon is on that journey right now, which they delayed it. They announced recently that they're going to delay it. We don't know until when, but based on what they're saying, they're pretty scared in the sense that they seem to be looking to make pretty major changes. Changes that I believe will probably take them more than 1 year, something like
yeah.
that. So, yeah.
And I think that's the problem with just the nature of the beast of game design at the moment is that you can't sit there in an interview and stifle people's expectations and make your game sound not like it's the best thing ever. So there's always this expectation that you have to constantly push and push and push and constantly impress. Um, and where do you find that balance between hyping up your game and setting reasonable expectations? Because if you set reasonable expectations, fans and the people viewing your content are gonna think that you're hiding something. But if you continue to hype it, then you end up where you're overpromising.
Look, I would rather they adopt a model. I'm not saying for all of them this is a viable thing, but early access has worked amazingly well for games like Baldur's Gate 3. Like early,
Mm.
they was not
Hades
stopped.
as well.
80s, they were doing early access testing. They were listening to what people were saying, so much time before, and it worked out really well for them. So that's one avenue maybe they can explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely need
That has
more.
its own issues, but
Yeah.
um honestly, so I don't know who put this on the list, but I have a feeling, and we'll see if I was right. but there was a game that came out that I was super interested in because it had IPs in it that I'm a fan of. But and I remember it had sort of it's a unique scenario because it's a game that had a moment. Like people were on this game and it could have been the next big thing, but it never quite got there. And now I think it's either it's about to shut down or it's already shut down. Whoever wrote this will have to correct me. But Multiverses, right? Who was that put that on the list?
I'm a ninja in the night. I can put things on the list when no one notices.
Tell me a little bit about Multiverses, because I'm a pretty like I'm a fan of like some of the properties they put in there. You know, like obviously the DC heroes and stuff. So I was really interested in it, but I never actually played it. But I saw it had like a moment where like it felt like everybody and their mother was playing it, and then it just fell off. Like what happened?
So one, the game's already dead. It's been dead like a month.
Okay, yeah, okay.
It's gone.
That's what I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no. So basically, it was 2022. They released the beta for the game.
Was it
So
2022? Feels
Yeah,
like it
it
only
was-
just came out.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? Didn't
It
he
was
get
in a-
relaunched? Hold on, we gotta hear the
yes,
story.
yeah. So, man, my microphone sounds weird. Hold on. But yeah. So basically, 2022 game comes out in beta. You can make microtransactions and all that. So they released it, but people loved it. It had like 100,000 concurrent players on Steam. So it did really well, and they kept the beta around for a year. An entire year they kept the beta around open. You could spend money and all that. And then I don't know whose bright idea it was to take the game down. I know there was a bunch of reasons behind it, but they decided to take the game down from beta and shut it down temporarily. And that kind of killed the hype a little bit because everyone was like, what? So it goes away for an entire year. I think it shut down in 2023 and then it came back last year in May. But they reworked the entire game. So they brought it to the current what is it? Unreal Engine. They brought it to Unreal Engine 5 and they changed a lot of the gameplay. The gameplay became much slower and people were not happy about it. It just was not as good of a game. They removed the ability to play as everyone offline, so you had to buy every character and grind for every character in order to play as them offline. It was a mess. They fixed some of this over time, but the deed was already done. They screwed up and they weren't really able to recover. A bunch of stuff behind the scenes got revealed, and ultimately they shut the game down. They announced it earlier this year, and then they shut it down. It was a mess of ego, pride, and Warner Bros. Getting their greedy hands on something.
You know what that
It
sounds
It feels
like?
like going to Unreal 5 is just a death sentence at the moment.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not,
yeah.
it's not
Mhm.
great. It's like the least optimized engine ever. But you know what that sounds like? It sounds like they had like a fun little idea. Let's make a Smash clone. We're gonna put Bugs Bunny in there with Superman, LeBron James, and we're just gonna have them, duke it out. And I remember seeing like the animations for some of them, like Tom and Jerry and stuff like that, and they looked like clearly whoever the developers were who were making it had a passion for it because the animations and what characters were doing were so in tune with how those characters are for real in their stories. And it felt like, to me, it sounds like the game had its moment, and then all of a sudden, like the big wigs at the top smelled money, and they were like, "Let's take it down, let's change it because everybody's gonna come back, and now we can exploit them." And it just didn't work.
Yeah. No, I
It's-
agree.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
sorry.
It was kind of a weird situation because it was funny enough, Warner Bros. Isn't actually completely to blame. I don't doubt that some of these decisions probably came back to Warner Bros. But it was one of the lead guys on the game that really like brought its downfall. It was someone at Player First Games that just was full of himself. He had a big ego thing, and like all these decisions kind of stacked up. Trying to bring in like the riffs and all that. It's just like it was bad decision after bad decision after bad decision that ultimately led to just no one caring and everyone leaving, and it's like it's kind of disappointing, but it also does kind of harken back to the fact that the whole live service like microtransaction model is not sound. And I think that a little bit is kind of what killed it. I think people would have been more willing to pay money for the game like all the characters were there and it was like a full complete game instead of having to buy every character or grind for every character
Ugh,
for like 10 hours a character.
that's crazy.
It was awful.
Get
It
in
sucked.
the Battlefront 2 Darth Vader grind.
Yes, that
Yeah.
leads directly into that one. You can't have a discussion about some of the worst launches of all time without talking about the game that has the highest amount of dislikes for a comment relating to it on Reddit ever. Like the highest disliked, hated comment on all of Reddit was EA responding to somebody complaining about the grind for the heroes in Battlefront 2 and saying we wanted to do that for your sense of pride and accomplishment.
Oh yeah.
It's like, okay, okay.
That's certainly what I felt playing that game.
Pride and accomplishment. And that's another one that like that one is also weird because it's had its comeuppance, right? Like it's now that's the wrong word, but you see what I mean. It's had a revival, right? Like even now
Yeah.
people are playing it and having campaigns. Where's Battlefront 3? We want Battlefront 3. Bring us Battlefront 3. I don't think it's going to happen, at least anytime soon. I think that stink is still lingering over. Especially when like it's bad when Disney steps in and says, "Hey, dude, we've got to figure this out," right? Because I remember when that happened, the shit show that happened with Battlefront 2 was insane. And I have played it as of recently, like during the campaign for people to try to get Battlefront 3 and all the players started swarming back to the servers. It's fun, man. Like they have really
Yeah.
fixed it up. It is a
It's
good
never not been
experience.
fun.
It
Yeah, I
always at
mean,
its core has been great.
yeah. The only issue really with Battlefront 2 was the microtransactions and the need to grind the characters. As soon as they took that away, what you're left with is just this really, really fun game to play. Like one of my favorite ever gaming moments is from playing Battlefront 2, and playing on Geonosis, and you get to part of the map in the conquest mode. You're recreating the scenes from episode 2 where you take down the Lucre Hulk before it takes off, and it just covers the map in this dense sandstorm, and all you can see is like laser bolts firing back and forth, and it was the most thrilling, intense fight I've ever had in any kind of video game, just because it just captured this iconic moment from the films that even as a kid I thought was like the coolest thing ever. And games don't often manage to invoke that kind of like intense emotional response just from a change in scenery, basically. So it's such a shame that what is genuinely a really, really good game was just dragged down by awful decisions with microtransactions.
And so yeah, I mean, literally, I think Battlefront 2 is the most Star Wars game you can play. Like it the sounds, the way things look, the way you feel when you're in these massive firefights like you had on Geonosis. Like if you are a fan of Star Wars, you play a single match of Battlefront 2 and you're like, I am in the world. This is Star Wars.
Yeah.
I am living in it right now. It is magical. It's just the game suffered because of that insane grind and those loot boxes they put in there that were completely unnecessary. And it honestly, this could have been Battlefront 2 could have been one of the best multiplayer games of all time, bar none. Could have been the best multiplayer Star Wars game ever made, like
Oh,
without a
100%.
question. But those decisions from on high just immediately killed its chances, and now we're campaigning to try to get a Battlefront 3 when that should be an automatic at this point with an IP as popular as Star Wars. um it's really unfortunate, and I think EA has had sort of that problem. Like DICE in general has had that problem with, I mean, we just saw Battlefront 2042. We haven't had a Battlefront in a while since then because that game launched and it was not what people wanted. It did not work out the way that DICE and EA
Yeah.
wanted.
And that's also a game that's kind of fun now.
And it's kind of rude, but again, at launch, they kill it. Especially, I think, on these multiplayer games, you can't have a bad launch. Like, very rarely can you have a rocky launch and recover from it. Obviously, there are key examples where you can recover from that. Diablo 3 when it launched back in the day, the famous error 37, where nobody could get into the servers because they were not ready for that overload, and people were off that game. They bought the game and couldn't play it for like a month because nobody could get in. Right? It resurfaced again at the end of the month once it was supposed to be finally fixed, and so that pissed people off again and again. And then Diablo 3 also in general just had a lot of gameplay problems that once you got past the error 37 part, then you got into the game and there was a bunch of things they had to fix. But
An
Diablo 3
inherent pay
recovers.
to win from the real money auction house.
Yeah. The auction house was something they had to change up, and there's an entire chapter about it in Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. I recommend anyone pick that up and read it. But yeah, I mean, that was just a disastrous launch, but it recovered from that. But these are like, when we're talking about Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, Fallout, Diablo 3, even to a lesser extent, Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 2042, these are big games, like big companies, big developers that have the resources to take the loss, right? To take the hit because they'll survive it and then build themselves back up. But if you're like a smaller studio or you're like just now coming out with a game like Concord, for example, or like when Arcane was making Redfall, that's really hard to recover from. Like those kinds of disasters, it's hard.
A
And some of
studio
them,
killer.
yeah, absolutely, it is a studio killer. And some of them become they might not kill the studio outright, but I'm thinking of Anthem, where it kind of becomes a singular point where you can say this is where things started going downhill. And I mean, Anthem was the same way of like there's just nothing there. There was BioWare best known for its story. Who remembers the Anthem story? Right? Like the one person like in the world that cares about the Anthem story. The combat and stuff was great, but there was nothing to do in it. There was very little content. It was all repetitive, and BioWare hasn't been the same since.
Didn't they have BioWare the same problems at launch with Andromeda? So Mass Effect
They
Andromeda.
did.
That was a poor
Yep.
launch
They
as
did.
well.
Yep. And that was a different team too. Because see, the
Yeah.
Anthem team was the main primary, like the people who made Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And then Andromeda got sent to a different team. And so the main Bioware team got stuck making Anthem. Different team made Andromeda. And it's a whole mess, and it's still a mess
And
today where Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever you want to call
yeah.
it, it's up in the air. Like, is that even going to be a thing?
And the Anthem and Andromeda having bad launches as well also then went on to impact Dragon Age the Veilguard because those launches were going so poorly, devs had to be pulled away from the Veilguard. It actually got scrapped entirely. The entire dev team that were making Dragon Age quit over it, and then all of those remained devs had to go help with Andromeda, help with Anthem, and then a new team came back for the Veilguard, which again didn't have a poor launch, but had mixed response as a result of it.
Yeah, I think
So
more
it
and more,
has greater impact.
I think there's more story coming out right now to really uncover what happened with Veilguard, how many changes it had, like the story leader like leaving, we have someone else coming in through. It's funny because at one point a lot of people were hating on the story leader, and now we're finding out that the story leader who eventually came in to save what they could save of Velgard's story. So I think now we're seeing it a bit different.
Well, it was originally going to be a live service game,
Yeah.
and they had to fight to not make
Yeah.
it a live service
It's just
after
like,
it
why
had
are we
been
making
scrapped.
these dumb decisions, dude? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Like, this is the like what these people who make those decisions don't make games and they don't play them. Like, they don't
No,
care. They just want money for their shareholders, and it's
yeah,
like,
look,
it's all
like,
shareholders following trends
but
rather
it's like
than
this doesn't
innovating.
work, y'all. You're not making
but
any
look,
money off of this.
look,
But Fortnite
exactly.
makes money off of it, so it must work.
I know,
Look,
right? It's got to be.
I don't doubt there are smart people who work on these, like in terms of planning and stuff like that, but I could never understand. We see this happening now with PlayStation, the outcome of jumping on live service, and you put all your eggs in one basket. and now you have problems, right? But that's what I don't understand, because like common sense basically tells you maybe we should diversify. Yes, we're gonna try live service here too, but we should have these other projects just in case. But
Imagine if we were living
Famously,
in a
no one
world,
cares about single player games.
famously, right? I mean, imagine if we were living in a world where, and it's ironic you saying that because Sony's known for that, right? Now they put out Concord and this marathon shit is
fair
happening. It's
games,
like
where's fair games?
fair
Where's
games.
fair
What the hell's
games?
going on with that? Like that's not happening. I cannot see. It's like it's like Adrian's saying, you've got to diversify your portfolio. If you want to jump into multiplayer a little bit more, that's fine. We can see that it works sometimes. Helldivers 2 is a fantastic example of how
Yeah.
Sony getting into like first party multiplayer can work. But you can't just all of a sudden just try to have this full force of like, we're going to throw out 5 at you, throw it at the wall and see which one sticks, because you are dooming
Mm,
all the others if it doesn't, right? And now
yeah.
you're just got these studios making stuff that A, they probably don't want to make, and B, are not sticking, so they're losing money, and then C, maybe they, you know, maybe they shut down, maybe they get layoffs, maybe they don't get to make the next game because then Sony has to take further control. Like it's just a downward spiral where you just it's honestly it's terrible. It's awful. I can't stand it, to be honest.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, surely the game itself should dictate the platform for it rather than the need to make a live service dictating how the game ends up being.
right.
It's such a strange thing that you're making your developers, who are basically known for making great single player games. Like they try with The Last of Us, right? They try to push them into making some sort of
Last of Us
multiplayer, I don't
Online,
know,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
Luckily they canceled that, but I understand they spend money and time, and it came all the way nearly to being realized. But yeah,
But that, and
decisions.
honestly, I don't like. I wonder if we can consider that a good thing because Last of Us had an online mode, the first one, and people liked it, but it wasn't like the biggest thing in the world. But there was a player base, like people did fuck with that game. Um, then they're talking about doing this next one, this online one that was in development for a long time. Bungie comes in, says this shit don't work, fix it up. They end up trying to fix it up. It's still not working. They say they can't find the fun, so they scrap it instead of just forcing the release out and then having to deal with the aftermath. I like I wonder, I don't quite know the story. In comment section you'll have to let us know if there's like concrete evidence for where that decision to make the online mode again comes from, especially as a separate thing. I don't know if that's like a Sony-led decision, if Naughty Dog always wanted to do that, or what have you. But I wonder where that came from because that was a lot of resources and time that got taken for a game that never come out and will never come out. But I also have to wonder, is that better than the game coming out, it being a disaster, people being mad, people starting to doubt Naughty Dog, Intergalactic gets its trailers and people, have to bring up online if it's bad. Like, I wonder if that is the better way to do it than to just force it out like a Concord or what looks like it might be Marathon.
I mean, if it's not working, surely it's better to just take the hit, right? Why release something that's not working that's just gonna damage your reputation, cost more money in the long run?
Yeah. Especially if you're going to go back in and try to fix it anyway, right? Like,
Exactly.
that's just more time and
Just
money. If
cut
you
your
don't make a
losses.
return on that investment, that's a rough one.
Yeah.
One last one that I want to talk about before we wrap up with the games here is Final Fantasy 14. Because obviously, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy 14. But that is probably the number one I would consider example of a game that was a disaster at launch and got the most work done to rework it and has become the biggest success because of it. Right? Like that game launched and it was awful. Like I mean, there were so many things you could point to that made that game not work. From right now, the way that it works in Final Fantasy 14 is all of your classes are locked to your weapon, right? So you can change it at any time. Unlike a lot of MMOs, where if you pick like a paladin, you're stuck at being a paladin and you have to make a whole new character to play something else. No, in Final Fantasy 14, your character can be any of the classes. They just have to equip the right weapon. right? And they'll instantly change into their outfit. You can have their gear set up so that you can preset and swap. It gives you a lot of variety for your gameplay. But in the original version of the game, you could still do that, but you had to change each piece of equipment individually, which may not sound too crazy, but it took like a second every single piece of equipment to do like the animation and to put it on. And so you're waiting like 5 to 10 seconds to switch all of your stuff instead of just now where there's like one button press. It was buggy, it was laggy all the time, it crashed constantly. There was no inventory management whatsoever. Like there was no storage. So when you're going into a dungeon or you're doing a raid and you're picking up all this loot and it's filling up your inventory, you just have to go to a vendor and try to sell it. And there was no search function, so you couldn't like look up anything either. So it was super cumbersome. You couldn't like, oh, I really like this weapon or whatever, but it's filling up my inventory. I want to store it around somewhere for later. Can't do that. There's no storage, right? Limited. You couldn't see enough people on screen. Like you could only see like 20 people on screen at a time, which still sounds like kind of a lot, but in an MMO, that's not a lot, right? They could not render more than 20 people. And I think probably the two egregious things where there was a anima bar kind of thing, like a resource that you would use to fast travel. And that resource would have to refill. It would have to recharge, and it took a long time. So instead of like now, where if you want to fast travel somewhere, it just costs a little bit of money, like in-game money, you had to just wait. And so if you fast traveled somewhere and then your next quest was on the other side of the fucking world, well, you're hoofing it, bro. Like good luck. Like it was awful. And then there was a fatigue system where if you played the game, if you were a fan, you were like, I don't care. I love Final Fantasy. I'm going to play this MMO and I'm going to fucking love it. The number one person that the game needs to stay on the game and to accommodate those people who play every day all the time for hours, they put a fatigue system in there to where the longer you played, the less experience you would get, to the point where you would get zero experience for doing anything until you
That
stop
is
playing.
like the most like early 2000s MMO
They were like, bro,
choice
go
I've ever
touch
heard.
grass, bro. Stop playing our game.
I think
Was
the
it Genshin
turnaround
Impact?
for Final Fantasy 7 is 14, sorry, is so much more impressive because it is an MMO, and they are notoriously money sinks for devs. You know,
Yep.
if you launch and it's a bad launch, that's it. You ain't coming back because it costs so much money to develop
I mean, they had to bring in
an
Yoshi
MMO.
P to come
Yeah.
fix the whole thing. And the most majestic thing about it was they just literally blew it up. They just literally, quite literally blew up the game. Like a meteor came down and destroyed the entire game, and they reset from there. But they used that as part of the story too. And so now Final Fantasy 14 is kind of best known for its narrative through all of its expansions. Is one of the reasons why you would play the game. And
Yeah.
the disastrous first version of the game becomes the lead up to the new version where they blow up the game and start anew. It's crazy, and I'm glad that they fixed it. But like that's insane. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
Can you
it's
imagine if No
beautifully
Man's Sky
done.
they were like, I'm gonna blow up the universe?
I think
It's
Fortnite did that
absolutely
once.
beautifully done.
Yes.
Fortnite's done everything.
They've done everything. They've done Legos.
Yeah. They've done Rocket League.
They did Rocket League. They did Guitar Hero.
They did Star Wars. They had Palpatine come back.
Everything.
You can play Fall
Somehow
Guys
he
in
returned.
Fortnite.
No, I mean I've always been a WoW guy, so I've always, looked on at Final Fantasy 14 as the
Longingly,
weird
jealously.
stepsister. No, just like that weird little sister that wants to like play with you when you're playing with your grown-up games. But no, it is.
And then it grew
it's-
up, and then all the WoW people
Exactly.
defected and started going to 14.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
mean,
I
the
think-
fact that it's been able to compete with such a juggernaut is just a testament to how well they've done with that glow up.
I think the reason why a lot of WoW people went into it is also because I haven't played it, just seen streamers and here and there and stuff. But there's better quality of life features in Final Fantasy 14. A lot of WoW players wanted, but I understand the lore is very developed. So these are actually like one of the pitfalls of MMOs, like how do you make a coherent storyline, right? And apparently Final Fantasy 14 is great at doing that.
Launch your Final Fantasy 14 during World of Warcraft's most hated expansion pack story-wise, and that'll certainly do it.
Yeah, and it wasn't during wasn't a little bit of COVID during that time too? Like everyone was
Yeah,
playing in the first
yeah.
place, and so the hate
It
that what
was
expansion was that everybody hated?
Shadowlands. So it was the
Shadowlands.
perfect trifecta. It was a perfect trifecta. So they had Shadowlands, they had COVID, and they had all of the stuff coming out about how awful of a company Blizzard is. Um, and so those three things combined just really, really tanked World of Warcraft's player base. Like I, for one, I've played WoW on and off for, a couple of decades now, and the reveals around how awful of a company Blizzard was the thing that put me off playing WoW. And obviously, I never went to Final Fantasy 14 because I can't maintain playing an MMO these days. But I, like many other people, it was the final straw in, a game that you love just not hitting the mark anymore.
Well,
And I
hey, if
remember,
you ever want to play, we have open arms. The Final Fantasy 14 community is very friendly
If
to
I ever had the
newcomers.
time to pick up an MMO again, I would certainly try it out.
well, it made our list of the top 100 best games, which you can find on our website. We made a smash jump best 100 games of all time. But yeah, I
Good plug,
remember on
Adrian.
that.
Goddamn. Good job.
Well, I had to. I
He's
saw my
coming for my
own.
job, y'all.
But like for 14, I remember at the same time, the developers were very active. Like the people who were working on it, they were appearing on stage to promote it. They're doing
Yep. Still
interviews,
do.
and everyone's like
Yeah.
was basically in love with them. Because I believe there was also a story that one of the developers, I think, had cancer, was battling cancer through it, and they still pushed through, to make this game great. And yeah, so you had
It's an
that
incredible
goal,
story.
Ben was saying.
Incredible story. And it's a great game. And it's a great game. But looking at the time we have here, I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut the episode here, and then in the post show I want to spend some time talking to Jeremy about the Switch 2 because he's been playing the Switch 2. I'm pretty sure the only person that's most up with a Switch 2, I think, maybe.
Actually, there's more.
If
We got a
Nintendo wants to
couple.
donate me one, I'll take one. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Switch 2, and then perhaps we can get into a little bit of our some of the console launches from the past, compare Switch 2 to those past console launches, especially a direct comparison to Switch 1. I'll be interested to hear Jeremy's thoughts on that. But we're going to have to save that for the post show so that we can kind of keep the episode at a reasonable time. So for now, is there anything anybody wants to plug before we end off this episode, or any last thoughts you guys have on some disastrous video game launches?
No last thoughts, but I'll plug my YouTube. Few Thought Gaming. Uh, Reviews. Very occasionally do like video essays and just have chats. Check it out.
I'll just say smashjump.com. Always find us there.
Awesome. And also, again, oh yeah, Jeremy,
Yeah, there you go.
you gotta
Jeremy.
promote. You gotta promote. Come on, you gotta promote. You're publishing.
Please
Yeah.
buy it. I'm hungry.
Buy what? What are we buying? What is that? Is that a cheese? Is that cheese? I don't know what that is.
No, don't eat it, please. No, this is my book. If you want to buy it, I don't know. It's okay. I
Where can
guess.
you find it? Where can people find it?
Amazon.com. If you look up
Amazon.com.
the Dawn of Chaos, just look it up on there. You will probably find it eventually.
Jeremy,
Eventually.
can we find it in the UK as well, or in
Yeah.
Europe?
Mhm.
Oh, that's great.
Hell yeah.
Who at Smash
Pick up-
Jump's going
pick
to
up
get the
his book.
review copy?
Yeah, where's my review copy, man?
You can.
Why didn't I beta read it? $12.99? Man, review copy for $12.99. Dang. All right, guys. That's going to do it for the Smash Jump podcast. Don't forget, again, like I just said, we're going to be doing a post show all about the Switch 2 and comparing it to other console launches. So go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon if you want to check that out. Go to smashjump.com to check out a review of Mario Kart World, MindsEye that we talked about this episode, and to check out our top 100 games list on there. It should be on the front page, big, bold, huge up
Can't
on
miss
there.
it.
Go ahead and give that a click.
miss
You
it.
can't miss it. And we'd appreciate your attention and your thoughts down in the comment below about what was the most disastrous video game launch that you ever experienced. We'd love to hear your thoughts. With that, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.